Mr. President, I wasn't planning actually to come down here, but in the morning as we get prepared for the day, sometimes we watch the opening comments and reflect on what was talked about yesterday and what we discussed and what we see on the floor. And I've kind of had this new attitude that as I see people put information on the floor that has to have a balance to it, I'm going to come out and give that balance when I can. And the biggest one is on the economy. I sat here yesterday and heard some folks on the other side complain that it took us a week to deal with the food safety law, and they wondered why. Well, why is because the other side continues to require filibusters for 30 hours. I know you've been working aggressively on this, Mr. President, to try to figure out a way to get things on this floor quicker so we can have the debate. But it somewhat shocked me that they complained that it took a week when in fact their delay tactics caused the week delay. So they wonder why. They create the problem, then they complain about the problem. But the bigger issue is on the economy. You and I came here 2 years ago. We came and were sworn in this chamber, sworn in January of '09. This economy was collapsing. It was a disaster. It doesn't matter if you were from Alaska or New Mexico, wherever you went, you heard the stories, the problem with the economy and where we were headed. And it was incumbent upon us to do as many things possible to assist the economy to grow, to figure out the pathway. Not all the ideas that we laid on the table and passed were perfect, but they were multiple and multifaceted to figure out what we're doing, versus the other side just kept saying no, no, no. They weren't interested in doing anything to move this economy forward. We were in a crisis moment. And when you think about the issues, you look back and, always at the time you're making decisions and you're hoping for the best and you're trying everything possible. And to remind ourselves where we were, it didn't matter, again, as I said, if you were from Alaska or New Mexico. The economic condition of this country and this world were at risk. So we made some moves that were very controversial, and today many of us don't like to talk about. Because the pollsters will tell you bad news, don't talk about it, the public hates it. It may be the TARP or the auto bailout or the stimulus, figure out the list. But what I look at, and every day I read the Business Week, I read Wall Street Journal, I look at CNBC, I look at all the business publications, online and in print. And what I like to see is not what politicians are saying how the economy is going, but what other people are saying. But people actually work every single day trying to build this economy. And I can speak from this, and I know, again, no disrespect, I know you're an attorney, Mr. President, no disrespect to the attorneys that are here. We have lots of them in the U.S. Senate. I'm from the private sector. My first business license was at the age of 14. My wife owns 4 retail stores. We are business people. We understand what it takes to go to the bank and try to scratch a loan from them to build a business, expand a business. We understand when a banker says no, that we have to go raise capital from other folks to try to make our dreams come true. There are a lot of people who come on this floor on the other side that talk a lot about business, never been in it, never had to make a payroll. They have worked their way through another means of income. And so it's frustrating to me when I hear people come out on this floor and talk about the business world and have never been in it. And let me just give you some data points. And I'll probably do this more often than I should over the next several months, because the American people have heard the story from the other side over and over and over again. I was no big fan of the auto bailout. A lot of us weren't. But, 10 days ago, a little blip in the news, GM had the largest initial public offering in the stock market history. First, they had estimated around $17 billion to be subscribed to it. Then it was $20 billion. The latest news is $23 billion. American people put their money on the table and bet on GM. $23 billion. Unbelievable. And actually, what really shocked me was when I grabbed, and I get it every day, I read it, and I think it's incredible news stories, and it's not your liberal newspaper, it's the Wall Street Journal. It has very conservative views on a lot of things, but their headline, GM stock sale in high gear. Government-backed car maker is on the pace to score one of the largest U.S. IPOs ever. The government owns 61% of that. With that IPO, it's now down to about 26%. It clearly shows, even though it was controversial, and still is controversial today, no one wants to talk about it, that investment to save an American company in order for it to sustain American jobs in this country is succeeding. It's not because I'm saying it. It's not because maybe you might say it, Mr. President, or the other side now who wants to take some credit, which is amazing. I love some of the quotes I read. You know, when this first was kicked around, they called it socialism, the world was collapsing, the sky's falling. Now today you read some of the folks on the other side and they say, well, you know, with our help, we made it a better deal. Well, they didn't vote for anything to make it a better deal. That's just a fact. The fact is, we took the risk to make an American company survive. That's what we did on this side of the aisle. Today, that company is more profitable than ever before. When you look at the data, the private sector is successful. The American people are investing in that company. That's the true test of what the work we did, even though it was controversial, what the outcome was. But as I sit here in the last couple days, I'm going to read you just a couple more data points. And again, it's not me saying it, not me writing these issues. It's the private sector who is identifying where we're going in this economy today. And later this week, we'll get a report on Friday. The private sector, and I heard today in some of the comments, we should let the private sector do as much as possible. I 100% agree. 100% agree. I come from the private sector. Again, many on the other side talk about it, but they've never been there. The private sector added 93,000 jobs last month. When you look at another one, the number I like to look at is consumer confidence. When consumers are more confident about the economy, they will spend more money, drive our economy, and invest in their country. Interesting to note, consumer and manufacturing reports beat forecasts. That came out yesterday. Again, another indicator that the economy is moving in the right direction. Still rough and fragile, but moving in the right direction because of policies, controversial, yes, but we took the risk and bet on the American people. That's what the Democrats did. We said we believe in American ingenuity, innovation, and the capacity to pull us out of this recession. But we're going to help them with some tools. And they're doing it. They're making it happen. Another one, and I can tell you this from being in the retail, my wife in the retail business, Black Friday, which is the Friday after Thanksgiving. This is what retailers focus on when we move into fourth quarter. What's it going to be like? Is it going to be successful? And if you look at all the reports compared to a year ago, retailers have strong momentum coming out of Black Friday. Everyone did very well. That's another good indication. Matter of fact, one encouraging sign, this is actually out of another business document, CNBC did this. One encouraging sign comes from NPD Group. This does the research and tries to figure out what consumers are after Black Friday and other retail shopping days. The research firm suggests that shoppers are starting to buy items for themselves. In addition to gifts for others, about 35% of shoppers told NPD that when they were shopping on Black Friday, they also made purchases for themselves. If shoppers are starting to splurge on themselves, it would be an important development for retailers that could push the holiday season past sales forecast. I'm not making this stuff up. This is what's happening because, again, this side of the aisle said, we're going to bet on the American people. We're going to bet that the work we did in early 09, trying everything possible to jumpstart this economy, is going to have a payoff down the road because we're going to focus on the private sector, helping them get the tools they need, just as we did just before the August break in passing the Small Business Incentive Program and creating tax incentives, loan capacity. Again, we only received 2 votes from the other side for that. So be it. We go the road alone. And the net result is after the last 2 years, and Mr. President, we've only, like I said, been here 2 years on this side. You've been on the other side for a year or decade or so. But here, We came to work. We came here to get work done. And may they be controversial at times, some of the decisions. Leadership is not the easy road. Leadership isn't just finding something that's easy and say, oh, we're just going to go do that because everyone loves it. Sometimes the tough decisions are the ones that the public has the hardest time with. In the worst situations, the recession, we made some decisions. Again, not perfect. But the results are slowly and surely coming true, that the economy is moving in the right direction. So every time I hear from the other side, the private sector needs to do more. Absolutely. Matter of fact, the private sector, the largest companies have more cash in their bank accounts today than in decades because they have done well over the last few years in preparing for the new growth in this economy that's occurring right now. So, Mr. President, I, again, didn't plan to come down here. I was getting prepared for a Commerce Committee hearing. I know you and I are both on that committee, and we have lots of work to do there. But anyone who suggests that we're not focused on this economy or focused on job creation or figuring out how to make sure that the middle-class taxpayers of this country get a fair shake and make sure they have a tax break coming forward and continuing forward, those that say that we're not focused on that are mistaken. One thing I've learned, and I learned when I was a mayor, you can do more than one thing at one time. We're sitting down here. The reason I could come down here and talk was because no one was talking. It's dead zone. That's what happens. So when they come down here and say, geez, I wish we'd be working on this and working on that, well, then quit filibustering, quit doing the 30-hour delays, get on with the work. We're doing it. We're multitasking because that's what American people ask us to do, work on jobs, the economy, taxes, the budget. It's not one thing at a time. We're 100 people. We can do this. But anyone that sits around and thinks that we're not focused on the economy, someone who lives in the private sector, who comes from the private sector, who deals with small business people every single day, I understand exactly what they're feeling. And so those that have never experienced that should experience it once and understand that every day is an opportunity. But I'm going to continue to come down here and talk about the positive news, the opportunities that are occurring from the work that we have done in the last 2 years. The other side may complain, may argue over was it right, was it wrong. The proof will be in the pudding by the fact that other people, not politicians jawboning about it, but actually people who are in the private sector telling us. And we have had some good news over the last several months. The last thing I'll leave on is another bit of good news, and it was, again, from the small business. They do an indicator, and they try to determine the confidence level of a small business person. Why is that important? Because the small business community is the largest driver of new employment now, in the future, and in the past. So you want to make sure their confidence level is high. Well, the last 5 months, it has increased every single month. I believe it's because actions we have done here to give them faith that we believe in them, we believe in the American people, we believe that the ability to move this economy is ahead of us, and we are doing it today. So again, Mr. President, I'll continue to come down with data points, articles, not out of liberal magazines or liberal publications. I know I heard earlier today some liberal agenda. I don't know what that's all about. I know what the American agenda is. That's what I'm here to do. I know what the Alaska agenda is. That's what I'm here to do. And if we just get off of these, partisan kind of activities and focus on what's right, we'd get a lot done around this place. But I will continue to come down here and talk about the positive aspects of what's going on in this economy. Believe in the future and have an attitude of being positive about what we can do. It's amazing what this economy and what this country can do together. So again, Mr. President, I appreciate the moments here of rant that I was able to do. I just warned my staff as I left. I said, turn on the TV. I didn't tell them why I was coming down here. I'm sure they'll tell me when I get back what was I doing. But on a regular basis, I will come down here and I will talk about the positive news aspects of this economy, and will no longer listen to the other side naysaying negative attitudes that we have an economy that is moving, fragile, but moving in the right direction because we on this side bet on the American people, and I believe we bet right. So let me end there and say, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, thank you very much, and I Yield the floor and note an absence of a quorum.